Hey guys, tonight we are going to do something a little different. Tonight, we're traveling, not to a battlefield or a grand throne room, but to a place where the most intense drama happens in whispers, behind paper screens and through handwritten notes, exchanged in the dead of night. We are setting our time machine for the long, elegant, and almost ridiculously complicated world of Heian era Japan, around the 10th and 11th centuries. This is a world of exquisite beauty and suffocating roles, and frankly, if you were dropped in there unprepared, you'd probably commit a social faux pas so huge, you'd have to become a monk, or just, disappear. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As always, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see our little communities scattered across the globe, all settling in for the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice isn't what you see, but what you smell. The air is heavy with the scent of cypress wood, still damp from a morning shower, mingled with the sweet, smoky aroma of meticulously blended incense. A gentle rain patters softly on the cedar shingle roof, a constant, soothing rhythm that forms the soundtrack to your life. You are a young man of good birth, a member of the Fujiwara clan, perhaps, or one of the other noble families that orbit the emperor. Your world is a gilded cage, a sprawling complex of wooden buildings connected by covered walkways, all raised slightly off the ground. This is your home, your office, and your entire universe. You don't really go out. The capital city, Heian, what will one day become Kyoto, is a bustling, gridded metropolis, but to you, it's mostly an abstraction. The streets are muddy, crowded, and full of commoners, disease, and the kind of raw, unfiltered reality your class spends its entire existence trying to avoid. Your life is lived almost entirely within the serene, curated environment of your family's estate. Your days are not filled with work in the modern sense, but with the demanding performance of leisure. You practice your calligraphy, the brush moving with meditative grace across the paper. You might play a few notes on the shakuhachi, the bamboo flute, its lonely sound drifting out across the meticulously raked gravel of the courtyard garden. You compose poetry, agonizing over the perfect word to capture the specific shade of melancholy you feel watching a single petal fall from a cherry tree. This is a world obsessed with aesthetics, but probably not the kind you're used to. Beauty here is a subtle, layered, and deeply serious business. A truly refined person, male or female, powders their face to a stock, mask-like white, and a beautiful woman's smile. Well, it's not the bright, toothy grin you see on modern billboards. In fact, that would be considered almost monstrous. True elegance lies in oigoro, the practice of dyeing one's teeth black with a foul-tasting concoction of iron filings dissolved in vinegar. It might sound bizarre, but there was a logic to it. The lacquer not only protected the teeth from decay, but on a ghostly white face, a flash of white teeth was considered jarringly skeletal. A dark, mysterious gleam was far more alluring. To complete the look, the high-ranking woman would shave off her natural eyebrows entirely, then paint a smudged GUI, sunburst-like brows high on her forehead, like a pair of charcoal gray clouds floating in a pale sky. Then the hair. A woman's hair is her crowning glory. Quite literally, the ideal is impossibly long, straight, jet black hair that flows down her back like a silken waterfall, often reaching the floor. It is a testament to her breeding, her patience, and the small army of attendants required to maintain it. You can only imagine the sheer impracticality of it. But practicality isn't the point. The point is a profound, almost oppressive elegance. This is the aesthetic of miyabi, or courtly refinement, and it governs everything. For women of the highest ranks, this refined existence is even more constricted than yours. They live in near total seclusion, hidden away in the inner chambers of the residence. They are not meant to be seen by any man outside their immediate family. They spend their days behind bamboo blinds on painted screens, their presence indicated only by the rustle of silk, a faint scent of perfume, or perhaps the edge of a colorful sleeve peeking out from beneath a curtain. Historians are still debating whether this extreme seclusion was a romanticized form of protection, designed to elevate a woman's mistaken value, or simply a gilded cage, a polite but firm way of controlling her every move. In this world, love isn't shouted from the rooftops. It's whispered through a bamboo blind. It's not about what you see, but what you imagine. And it's in this hushed, fragrant, and deeply complicated world that your own story is about to begin. You are of an age where marriage is expected, and your family has its own political ambitions. But recently, you've started hearing whispers. Whispers of a certain lady in the northern wing of a neighboring minister's estate. The whispers start subtly, carried by your most trusted attendant, a man who has served you since you were a boy and knows the court's intricate social web better than anyone. He mentions her in passing one evening as he prepares her inkstone, grinding the black stick with water in a slow, circular motion, the daughter of the minister of the left. He says, not even looking up. They say her skill with the koto is such that even the birds in the garden fall silent to listen. A few days later, while discussing a new poem by a famous courtier, he adds, I hear the young lady has already mastered 100 verses from the cock and shoe. Her calligraphy is said to be as delicate as the frost on a winter reed. Each mention is a carefully placed stone, creating ripples in the placid pond of your daily life. She is never just described as beautiful. That would be crude. Instead, her virtues are artistic, intellectual. You hear about her impeccable taste in the color combinations of her robes, a complex language known as Kasani no Irome, where layers of silk mimic the natural palette of the seasons. You hear about her personal incense blend, a closely guarded family secret, said to be so unique and captivating that its scent lingers in a corridor long after she has passed through. She becomes a collection of exquisite talents, a living embodiment of the Miyobi ideal. She is a legend before she is a person, and you find yourself hopelessly intrigued by this phantom of perfection. But how do you even catch a glimpse of someone who is, by design, invisible? Your chance comes during the Kamo festival, one of the few occasions where the city's rigid social order bends just a little. Noble women, in their grand, lacquer dock-strong carriages, or GIS join the procession while they remain inside. It is customary for them to leave the carriage blinds rolled up just enough to allow the magnificent, cascading sleeves of their 12-layered robes the famous Juni Haito to spill out for public admiration. It's a way of displaying taste and status without revealing oneself. You and your friends find a strategic, yet appropriately nonchalant, viewing spot along the route. The air is thick with excitement. Finally, the carriage you've been told as hers approaches. It moves with a slow, ponderous grace, the massive wooden wheels creaking rhythmically. Your heart, embarrassingly, seems to be beating in time with them, and then you see it. Spilling from the bamboo blind is a cascade of silk. The outermost layer is a deep, shimmering wisteria purple, followed by a lighter shade of violet, then a pale lavender, a soft green, and finally, a glimpse of pristine white. The combination is breathtakingly elegant, perfectly echoing the late spring blossoms. The fabrics are so fine they seem to float, the edges stitched with delicate gold thread that catches the sunlight. As the carriage draws nearer, a faint, almost imperceptible scent reaches you. It's not the heavy, common aloes wood you smell everywhere in the palace. This is different. It's lighter, with notes of sandalwood, clove, and something else, something floral and sweet that you can't quite place. It's her signature scent, the one from the rumors. In that moment, she is more real to you than if you had seen her face. Her identity is communicated through color and fragrance, a disembodied yet profoundly intimate statement of self. Historians still debate just how absolute the seclusion of Heian noble women was. Were there cracks in this facade? Could a clever young woman arrange to be accidentally seen by a potential suitor, using the very rules of concealment as a tool for flirtation? Perhaps that artfully arranged sleeve wasn't just for general admiration, but a targeted signal. We can't know for sure. But as you stand there, long after her carriage has creaked past, the image of those purple sleeves is burned into your mind. You return to your chambers feeling restless, the quiet elegance of your own room suddenly feeling empty. The world of poetry and music you inhabit now has a focal point. A muse, but a muse behind a screen. A scent on the wind, the gossip, the glimpse of a sleeve, the ghost of a perfume. It's not enough. You know the protocol. This feeling, this sudden, sharp pang of fascination can only be expressed in one way. You cannot call on her. You cannot send a messenger to request a meeting. You must write. You sit down at your low writing desk, your mind racing. This can't be just any letter. It has to be a work of art. The first move in a game where every detail matters. Now you face the true terror of a young Heian nobleman. The blank page, a declaration of interest, isn't a casual "hey, what's up" text. It's a multi-layered artistic and intellectual challenge, and a single misstep can doom you before you've even begun. You feel a pressure that is both exhilarating and nauseating. This isn't just a letter. It's a resume, a personality test, and a first impression all rolled into one. First, the paper. You don't just grab a random sheet. The choice of paper is the first word of your message. A thick, pristine white paper might signal sincerity and formality. But that's a bit boring, isn't it? A bit predictable. You consider a pale blue, reminiscent of the sky after a rainstorm, to suggest a mood of thoughtful melancholy, or perhaps a soft, plum-colored paper, subtly hinting at the wisteria shades of hearse leaves at the festival. You finally settle on a thin, high-quality Michinoke Yugami, a type of mulberry paper known for its delicate texture, dyed a faint, smoky gray. It suggests sophistication and a modern, slightly somber sensibility. You even go so far as to lightly fold and unfold it, creating a subtle pattern of creases that gives it character. Next, the poem. This is the heart of the matter. You must compose a waka, a 31-syllable poem in the 57,577 format. You can't be direct. Phrases like "I think you're beautiful" or "I'd like to get to know you" are horrifically blunt, the equivalent of shouting in a library. Your poem must be elusive, metaphorical, and packed with layers of meaning. It should reference a well-known classical poem, demonstrating your literary knowledge. But give it a personal, original twist. Your theme must also be appropriate to the season. It's late spring, so a poem about falling snow would be not just out of place, but a sign of a clumsy, unrefined mind. You stare out at the garden. The irises are beginning to bloom by the edge of the pond. An idea sparks. You could compare your burgeoning feelings to a flower that has just begun to open, prompted by the reign of her reputation. Or perhaps you focus on her scent, the one that captivated you. You could write about how a single, mysterious fragrance has thrown your senses into delightful confusion. For hours, you draft and redraft, chanting the syllables under your breath to test their rhythm. Every word is weighed. Finally, you have it, a short, elegant verse that speaks of being haunted by an unnamed, captivating scent, leaving you restless and longing to know its source. It's indirect, respectful, but the message is clear to anyone versed in the language of courtly love. No, the calligraphy. Your handwriting is a direct reflection of your character. A bold, confident hand might suggest arrogance. A weak, shaky script could imply a timid or sickly nature. You need to strike the perfect balance, graceful but masculine, with fluid, artistic flourishes that show your mastery of the brush. You take a deep breath, center yourself, and let the brush flow across the page. The characters must be perfectly spaced. The ink a consistent shade of black. But you're not done yet. You must attach a sprig of a flowering plant to the letter. This is not mere decoration. It's a critical part of the message. The plant must match the season and the sentiment of the poem. A cherry blossom branch would have been perfect a few weeks ago, but now their time has passed. To send one now would be like showing up to a party in last year's fashion. Its green's out of touch. You consider a sprig of Carrier rose, its bright yellow flowers full of vibrant passion. But that might be too forward, too aggressive. You decide on a single, perfect stem of wisteria. Its cascading purple blossoms a direct, yet unspoken, reference to the sleeves of her Junie high toe at the festival. It's a bold move, almost intimate, saying "I saw you, I remember." Finally, the whole package must be perfumed. You hold the folded letter and the wisteria sprig over the smoke of your personal incense blend. letting the fragrance permeate the paper. The scent should be distinctively yours, so that when she receives it, she is literally breathing in your essence. It's an incredibly sensual act, conducted from a distance. One of the strangest little tidbits of this era is that men were often judged by their ability to expertly blend incense. A man who smelled good was a man of taste and substance. Historians have even found recipes for personal incense blends in the diaries of courtiers, treated with the same seriousness as a state secret. The letter is ready. A single, folded piece of gray paper, tied with a silken cord to a sprig of wisteria. Smelling of sandalwood and contemplation, you hand it to your trusted attendant, who will then deliver it not to her, but to one of her ladies-in-waiting. Your heart is pounding. You have just sent the most complex, nerve-wracking hello of your life. Now, the waiting begins. The silence that follows is deafening. Every rustle of a screen, every footstep in the corridor, makes you jump. You try to occupy yourself. You pick up your flute, but the notes sound hollow and aimless. You unroll a scroll of classic poetry, but the words blur before your eyes. Your mind is entirely consumed by one question. What is happening on the other side of the city? In the women's quarters of the Minister of the Left's estate, your letter has arrived, and it has caused a quiet, contained flurry of excitement. It was handed directly to the young lady. Of course, that would be a shocking breach of protocol. It was received by her senior lady-in-waiting, a woman named Heian, who is her guardian, confidant, and gatekeeper. The letter is brought into the inner rooms, where the young lady and her attendants are gathered. The wisteria sprig is admired first, its color and freshness appraised. Then, the paper is carefully unfolded. The quality of the paper, its subtle gray hue, is noted and approved of. The calligraphy is scrutinized, each stroke analyzed for its strength and grace. Your name, subtly hinted at by your attendant or perhaps cleverly encoded in the poem itself, is whispered among them. Only then is the poem read aloud. There is a moment of contemplative silence as the women absorb its meaning. They dissect your allusions, debate the cleverness of your metaphors. Though, one of them might say, he compares his longing to the lingering scent of wisteria. He must have seen her at the Carmel procession. Another might note the specific classical poem you referenced, nodding in approval of your literary taste. They are judging you, as a collective, on behalf of their mistress. Their opinion matters. If they find your attempt clumsy or arrogant, they might advise her to ignore it completely. And what of the young lady herself? She sits demurely behind her small, personal screen, a keycho, listening. She says nothing, her face unreadable, but her heart is fluttering. She is pleased. The paper was elegant, the calligraphy superb, the wisteria a daringly personal touch. The poem was beautiful. He is clearly a man of refinement, but she cannot appear to eager. The game requires a certain degree of elegant aloofness. This is where you enter a state of exquisite torment. Will she reply at all? To not reply is a definitive, crushing rejection. It's the Heian era equivalent of being left unread, ghosted, and blocked simultaneously. It sends a clear message. You are not worthy of my ink. But if she does decide to reply, the delay is also part of the communication. An immediate response might seem desperate. She must wait a day, or perhaps even two, to show that she is a woman of high value, not easily won. During this time, you are in a state of suspended animation. You imagine the worst. Was your poem too bold? Was the wisteria branch presumptuous? Did your calligraphy have one clumsy stroke that revealed a fatal flaw in your character? You replay every decision in your mind, agonizing over details that now seem fraught with potential for misinterpretation. This period of waiting is a crucible, designed to test your sincerity and your nerve. What you don't know is that on the other side of town, a similar process of creation is underway. She is now composing her response. Her choice of paper will be a comment on yours. She might choose a vibrant, contrasting color, or a complementary shade that signals harmony. Her poem will be a direct reply to yours, using your own metaphors but twisting them slightly, advancing the poetic conversation. If your poem asked a question, hers might provide an elusive answer. Her calligraphy will be delicate, feminine, and graceful, a visual counterpoint to your more masculine hand, and she, too, will select a flower or a branch to attach, one that carries its own specific meaning, continuing the botanical dialogue you started. One of the curious aspects of this exchange that historians ponder is the level of collaboration involved. Was the poem truly from her, or was it a group effort, composed by a committee of her cleverest ladies in waiting? The diary of a real Heian court lady, Desi Aishona Gioen, is filled with anecdotes of women gathering to help their friends craft the perfect poetic retort. It's likely a mix of both. The core sentiment was hers, but the execution was polished by her rusted circle. It's a bit like a modern-day friend helping you draft the perfect text message, but with infinitely higher stakes. Finally, on the evening of the second day, your attendant appears at your door. He carries a single, folded piece of paper. Your breath catches in your throat. It's a deep, rich crimson, the color of a summer rose, tied with a delicate green ribbon. Attached is a single, perfect carnation, which in the floral language of the time can symbolize a love that is pure but tinged with a certain wistful sadness. You unfold it with trembling hands. The paper is infused with a scent you've only ever dreamed of. It's her. The poem is a masterpiece of subtle wit and elegant restraint. She doesn't accept, but she doesn't reject either. She simply acknowledges your message, and gently, poetically, asks for another. The conversation has begun. The relief is so profound it almost makes you dizzy. You have survived the first test. The poetic exchange continues for several weeks. Each letter is a carefully constructed move in this slow, deliberate game of chess. You send a poem on pale green paper likening your longing to the insistent cry of the cuckoo, and she replies on a brilliant orange sheet, subtly comparing your forwardness to the brief, flashy bloom of the safflower. You learn the rhythm of this correspondence, the agonizing today wait for her reply, the thrill of seeing her messenger, the quiet joy of unfolding a new, fragrant piece of paper. You are building a relationship based entirely on taste, intellect, and shared cultural references. You've never heard her voice. You've never seen her face. But you are, in the strange, abstract way of your time, falling in love. But letters alone will not advance this courtship. You need more information. You need an ally on the inside. You need to win over her chief lady in waiting, the formidable Chanagan. These attendants, often noble women of slightly lower rank themselves, are not mere servants. They are protectors, advisors, and the ultimate gatekeepers. A lady's reputation is in her attendant's hands, and Chanagan guards her mistress's honor with the ferocity of a dragon. Getting past her is the next critical step. This is a delicate operation. You can't just bribe her with money. That would be an insult to her own noble standing. You have to court her. In a way, you must show her that you are a man of taste, generosity, and, most importantly, discretion. Your attendant becomes your agent in this subtle campaign. He seeks out Chonago-N's brother, who serves in a minor post at the palace treasury. Through him, your attendant relays your deep admiration for Chonago-N's famous loyalty and intelligence. A little flattery, delivered through the proper, indirect channels, goes a long way. Next, you send a gift, not to the young lady, but directly to Chanagan. It cannot be too personal or extravagant, but it must be thoughtful. You select a rare, beautifully bound book of poetry, one that you know is not yet widely circulated at court. It's a gift that acknowledges her intellect and literary tastes. Tucked inside is a small, exquisitely lacquered box containing a new blend of incense you have created, a subtle variation on your own signature scent. The message is clear. I respect your judgment, and I wish to be included in your circle of trust. The gift is received. Chanagan is, privately, impressed. The book is a rare treasure, and the incense is of exceptional quality. It shows that you are not just some frivolous youth, but a man who understands the nuances of the court. Her demeanor towards your messenger softens slightly. Your attendant reports that on his last visit, he was offered a cup of tea. This is a major breakthrough. Now, through your attendant, you can begin to glean precious scraps of information. He learns that the young lady enjoys watching the moon from her veranda on clear nights. He learns that her favorite color is not wisteria purple, as you had assumed, but a deep, autumnal crimson. He learns that she has a small, mischievous dog that she dotes on. Each detail is a revelation, a pixel of color in the blank portrait of her you hold in your mind. This reliance on intermediaries is a defining feature of Heian romance. The lovers themselves rarely interact directly in the early stages. Their entire relationship is filtered through their most trusted attendants. This created a strange triangular dynamic, where the loyalty and competence of the servants were just as important as the feelings of the nobles they serve. One interesting question that scholars still debate is how much power these attendants actually wielded. Did they simply relay messages? Or did they actively shape the narrative? A lady-in-waiting could, if she disliked a suitor, accidentally misplace his letter, or subtly reinterpret the tone of his poem when reading it aloud to her mistress. Conversely, a clever attendant who favored a particular match could strategically praise a suitor's virtues and ensure his letters were always presented in the best possible light. They were the original spin doctors. One evening, your attendant returns with a glint in his eye. He tells you that Chonagan, through her brother, has passed along a message. It seems the young lady's father, the minister, will be away for 3 days on a religious retreat. The house will be quieter. The guards will be fewer. It's not an invitation. It's not even a suggestion. It is simply a statement of fact. A piece of information dropped like a pebble into a pond. But you both know exactly what it means. The gate is, for a brief window. And look, you have been granted an opportunity for the next terrifying step. The glimpse, the opportunity for a glimpse isn't a guarantee of seeing her. It's an invitation for a highly choreographed, nerve-wracking audio-only meeting. It's the Heian equivalent of a first phone call, but with a dozen listeners on the party line and the constant threat of your call being abruptly disconnected by her father's return. The plan is communicated through your attendant with the precision of a military maneuver. You are to arrive at the minister's estate after dark. Approach from the east side where the garden is thickest, and find a specific spot on the veranda outside the young lady's chambers. You dress with extreme care. You wear a fine silk hunting costume, the carriage in which is less formal than court robes but still incredibly elegant. Your clothes are deeply perfumed with your signature incense. Your scent will announce your presence long before you say a word. You travel in an unmarked carriage, pulling the bamboo blinds down to avoid being recognized. The short journey across the darkened, sleeping city feels like a pilgrimage. Your heart thumps a nervous rhythm against your ribs. Is this a good idea? What if you're caught? The potential for humiliation is immense. Your attendant guides you through the shadows of the garden. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. He leads you to a designated spot on the wooden veranda, right next to a set of heavy latticed shutters. Inside, you can hear the faint, musical clink of a hairpin and the soft rustle of silk. They know you are here. The moment of truth arrives. Your attendant clears his throat and announces you in a low, formal tone. Then, silence. A long, agonizing silence that stretches for what feels like an eternity. You are standing outside, exposed, waiting to be acknowledged. Inside, Chonagan and the other ladies in waiting are arranging the scene. The young lady is seated behind her kijo, the portable screen of state, which is itself placed behind a larger set of bamboo blinds. The monsieur, there are layers upon layers of concealment. She is completely invisible to you. Even if you could peek through a crack in the shutter, all you would see are screens and shadows. Finally, you hear a woman's voice. It's Chonagan. Her tone is polite but formal. My lady is honored by your visit, but she is rather shy and not accustomed to speaking with guests. This is a test. She is gauging your reaction. A clumsy or impatient man might press the issue. You know the protocol. You reply in a low, respectful voice, not to the young lady, but to the screen itself. You say something self-deprecating and poetic, perhaps about how you are content to simply be near the source of such radiance, even if you are unworthy of basking in its light. This is how the conversation proceeds. It's a bizarre, mediated dialogue. You speak to the screen. Chonagan, and occasionally another senior attendant, speaks for the young lady. They might say, My lady wonders if the moon looks as lovely from your side of the screen as it does from hers. Or, my lady finds your recent poem on the fleeting nature of dew to be most moving. You are talking about her, around her, but never directly to her. You can't see her, but you can sense her. You hear the faint rustle of her robes when a question particularly interests her. You notice the subtle shift in the air as her personal fragrance, that intoxicating scent from her letters, wafts through the blinds. You are building an image of her from these fleeting sensory clues. The entire experience is designed to heighten the mystery and longing by denying you the primary sense of sight. The encounter forces you to focus on everything else: the sound of a rustle, the scent of a perfume, the wit of a relayed comment. One of the details that modern readers often find most peculiar is that, on rare occasions, the young lady might speak, but even then, her voice would be a single, murmured, almost inaudible word or phrase, a whispered indeed, or a soft, musical laugh from behind the screen would be a moment of electrifying intimacy, a reward for the patient suitor. Historians are still unsure if this extreme vocal shyness was a genuine expression of modesty or a calculated coquettish strategy. Was she truly too timid to speak? Or was she deliberately using her silence as a powerful tool to enchant and intrigue her suitor? After what feels like both a lifetime and a single moment, Heian will signal that the visit is over. My lady is growing tired, and the hour is late. You must take your leave immediately. With grace and without complaint, you offer another poetic closing remark, bow to the unresponsive screen, and retreat back into the shadows of the garden. As you walk away, your mind is reeling. You are more infatuated than ever. The barrier of the screen, the disembodied nature of the conversation, has only amplified her allure. You have passed the second test. Now you find yourself consumed with a new, much bolder ambition, to get past the screen and into the room itself. The successful glimpse has changed everything. The poetic back and forth feels different now. It's charged with the memory of that night on the veranda. Her replies seem, to your hopeful mind, slightly warmer, more personal. The invisible barrier between you has been tested, and while it held, you both know it's no longer absolute. Now, you find yourself awake late into the night, staring at the moon, not composing poetry, but planning. You are contemplating the OBAI, which literally translates to night crawling. It sounds sordid, but in the context of Heian courtship, it was a recognized, if highly risky, next step. This is not a spontaneous act of passion. It is a meticulously planned covert operation that requires courage, stealth, and, once again, the complicity of your ally on the inside. Heian, through your attendance, a delicate negotiation takes place. There is no explicit yes, come on this night. Instead, the messages are maddeningly indirect. Your attendant might report, Heian mentioned that the night watchman on the east side has a terrible cough and will likely retire early on the next moonless night. Or, the mistress's father is attending an all-night sutra chanting ceremony at the temple this Friday. These are not invitations. They are windows of opportunity, presented for you to either seize or ignore. You choose a moonless, overcast night. The darkness is your camouflage. You dress not for elegance this time, but for stealth. You wear dark, soft robes that won't rustle, and your feet are shod in soft-soled slippers. You leave your clanking sword and any other noisy accoutrements behind. Even your customary perfume is used more sparingly, lest a strong gust of wind betray your position to the wrong person. This isn't about announcing your presence. It's about slipping through the cracks of a fortress. You travel with only your most trusted attendant, and you leave the ox carriage some distance away, proceeding the final stretch on foot. The sleeping city is an alien landscape, full of unfamiliar shadows and the distant barking of dogs. Every snapped twig underfoot sounds like a thunderclap. Your destination is the same spot on the veranda, but tonight, your objective is different. You are not waiting for a voice. You are waiting for a door. You arrive and wait in the chilling silence. Your senses are on high alert. You can hear the rhythmic breathing of someone sleeping in a nearby outbuilding, the chirp of a cricket, the pounding of your own heart. This is the moment of greatest risk. A passing guard, a servant fetching water, A nosy neighbor, any random event could lead to discovery and catastrophic disgrace for both you and her. After an eternity, you hear a soft, barely audible creak. One of the wooden shutters is being unlatched from the inside. A slender gap of darkness appears. This isn't. Your attendant gives you a final, encouraging nod, and then melts back into the shadows to keep watch. You are on your own. You slide through the narrow opening into a world of almost total blackness. The air inside is warm and thick with her perfume. It's intoxicating. You stand frozen for a moment, letting your eyes adjust. The room is not empty. You can just make out the dark, still shapes of several sleeping attendants on pallets on the floor. You are in a room full of people, all of them potential witnesses. This is one of the most astonishing, undebated aspects of the UBAI. Where, exactly, did the lovers meet? Some scholars believe the suitor was guided to a small, private antechamber. Others, citing passages from the tale of Genji, argue that the tryst often happened right there in the main room, with the lady behind her curtained sleeping days, surrounded by her sleeping entourage. The idea was that as long as no one officially saw anything, nothing officially happened. It was a culture of plausible deniability. You see a faint light from behind a curtained enclosure. That is where she is, taking a breath that feels like your first and your last. You begin to move silently across the floor. The hours that follow are a blur of whispered words, the intoxicating scent of her hair, and the rustle of silk in the profound darkness. For the first time, she is not an idea, not a poem, not a fragrance on the wind. She is a real, warm presence beside you. You learn the cadence of her breathing, the soft sound of her laugh, a sound you've only ever dreamed of hearing. It's a connection forged in near total blackness, an intimacy that is all the more powerful for its sensory deprivation. But this fragile bubble of reality cannot last. Long before the first hint of gray lightens the eastern sky, a new kind of anxiety begins to set in. You hear the first, distant crow of a rooster. It's a death knell for the night's magic. The most critical, non-negotiable rule of the OBA is that the man must leave before dawn. You must be gone before the household begins to stir, before a single servant sees you. To be discovered in the morning would be an unimaginable scandal, ruining her reputation forever and making you a laughingstock at court. A soft touch from her, a gentle pressure on your arm, signals that it's time. The departure is a hurried, silent, and deeply sorrowful affair. There are no long goodbyes. You slip back through the unlatched shutter, melt into the pre-dawn chill of the garden, and retrace your steps through the sleeping city. The world is bathed in a ghostly blue light. The air is cold and damp. Your mind is a whirlwind of elation and exhaustion. But a new, urgent pressure is already mounting. The night is over. The test has just begun. You cannot simply go home and collapse into bed. You have one more crucial duty to perform. You must, immediately, compose and send the kin UG and you know for me. The next morning letter. This is perhaps the single most important letter you will ever write. Its purpose is to reassure her that the night was not a casual fling, but a moment of genuine, heartfelt connection. To fail to send a letter would be the ultimate insult, a brutal confirmation that you were merely a predator. To send a clumsy or insincere letter would be almost as bad. Back in your chambers, your attendant already has the inkstone and fresh paper waiting. Your body aches with lack of sleep, but your mind is racing. The poem for this letter must be perfect. It has to be tender, intimate, and touched with the beautiful sadness of your dawn parting. You can't be triumphant. You must be wistful. You might write about how the night felt as brief as a single dead drop on a leaf, or how your sleeve is still damp with the tears of your separation. A popular theme was to lament the cockscrow, cursing the bird for bringing the morning so soon. You choose a piece of fine, sky, blue paper to match the color of the dawn. Your calligraphy, despite your exhaustion, must be fluid and filled with emotion. Then, you must choose a flower to attack. It, too, must reflect the mood. You select a single, dew-covered morning glory, a flower whose bloom is beautiful but tragically brief, a perfect metaphor for your night together. This tradition has a wonderfully romantic, if slightly impractical, name. Ken UG and you literally means silk on silk. The romantic ideal, described in tales, was that the departing lover would write his poem and attach it to the edge of the lady's robe-canoe which had been left lying next to his own. Historians, ever the party poopers, have long debated the literal truth of this. Was the sleep-deprived young nobleman, his head still spinning, truly capable of composing a literary masterpiece at the crack of dawn? Or did they, as some cynically suggest, have a few elegant, all-purpose morning after poems ready to go, just needing a minor tweak? It's a question that pits the romanticism of the literature against the practicalities of human nature. You dispatch the letter with your attendant, who must deliver it before the sun is high in the sky. And now, a new wait begins, one even more intense than the first. Her reply to this letter will tell you everything. It will confirm her feelings, her assessment of your character, and whether the door that opened for you last night will ever open again. You finally allow yourself to lie down, but sleep doesn't come. You lie there, replaying every moment, every whispered word, your robes still carrying the faint, lingering scent of her perfume, a ghostly reminder of a night that already feels like a dream. You've crossed the threshold, but you are not yet home and dry. Far from it, her reply arrives with what feels like lightning speed. By midday, your attendant is back, carrying a letter on paper the color of a pale pink dawn. Attached is not a flower, but a single, perfect maple leaf, its edges just beginning to turn crimson, a poignant nod to the coming of autumn and the bittersweet nature of fleeting moments. The poem inside is an echo of your own, speaking of a sleepless morning and a heart that followed you out into the cold light of day. Relief washes over you, so potent it leaves you light-headed. She felt it too. The connection was real. But this is no time to relax. You have cleared the first hurdle of physical intimacy, but now you must prove your intentions are serious. According to the unwritten but universally understood laws of Heian courtship, a single night's visit means very little. 2 visits are better, suggesting more than just a passing fancy. But the true test, the one that signals a commitment and moves the relationship towards something more permanent, is the 3-night ordeal. You must successfully visit her on 3 consecutive nights. This is where the courtship moves from a private affair to a semi-public secret. The household is now, to some extent, in on the game. Tsunagan, having sanctioned the first visit, will ensure the path is clear for the second and third. The other attendants will be more discreet in their movements. The night watchman's cough will conveniently worsen. They are no longer just guardians. They are co-conspirators in this burgeoning romance. Your second visit is less terrifying, more filled with a sweet, eager anticipation. You know the way now. The path through the garden is familiar. The creak of the shutter is a sound of welcome. The darkness of her chamber feels less like a void and more like a sanctuary. You spend the night in quiet conversation, learning about her family, her fears, her secret desire to one day go on a pilgrimage to the Haze Temple, a place she has only ever read about in stories. You are discovering the person behind the poetry and the perfume, and once again, you make your sorrowful, pre-dawn departure, followed by another carefully crafted next morning letter. By the 3rd night, a new weight of expectation hangs in the air. This night is different. It is the decider. Successfully completing the 3-night ritual is the traditional way a man proves his devotion. It elevates the relationship from a clandestine affair to a recognized, albeit not yet formal, union. It's the high-end version of changing your relationship status to its complicated, but official. After the 3rd night, something changes. You do not sneak away before dawn. Instead, you stay. As the sun rises and the household begins to stir, you remain with her behind her curtains. This is a hugely significant act. It is a public declaration. The first person to discover you will be Tsunagan, who will feign mild, dignified surprise. She will then arrange for a special meal to be brought to you both. Rice cakes, or maki. The sharing of these rice cakes on the morning after the 3rd night is a crucial ceremony. It's called the Tokura Rise High, or place revealing, and it is, for all intents and purposes, a marriage ceremony. There are no priests, no vows, no signed documents. The marriage is solidified by the shared, public within the household meal. By eating together in her chambers, you are acknowledged as her husband. It may not be your primary. Political marriage, that's a whole other complex issue. But you are now officially bound to her. Her family is now formally notified. Her father, the minister, who was conveniently away or unaware of the 3 nights of secret visits, is now informed. He will likely feign a bit of surprise and perhaps even mild disapproval for the sake of appearances, but in reality, he has probably known what was going on all along and has given his tacit approval by not interfering. Your own family is also told. The secret is out, and it solidifies into a fact of court life. The exact origins of this 3-night custom are, like many things from this era, a subject of academic debate. Some historians believe it has ancient roots in pre-Buddhist folk traditions, a kind of trial period to test the couple's compatibility and the man's resolve. Others see it as a purely social construct of the Heian court, a practical way to manage relationships and establish lineage in a society where men often had multiple partners. Was it a romantic trial or a pragmatic social contract? The truth is likely a bit of both. Now that your union is recognized, your visits are no longer a secret. You can come and go from her family as home more openly. Though still usually under the cover of evening, you have won her. You have passed the tests of poetry, of patience, and of perseverance. You might be tempted to think that this is the happily ever after, but you are in Heian, Japan. The game is never over. The rules just change, and in a world as small and claustrophobic as the Heian court, your new, semi-official love affair is about to become the hottest topic of gossip. The morning after you share the rice cakes, the air itself seems different. The servants in your own household bow a little lower. There's a new kind of knowing look in your attendant's eyes. The news of your 3-night courtship has spread with the speed of a brush fire, not through official announcements, but through the court's incredibly efficient grapevine. The network of attendants, junior courtiers, and ladies in waiting who trade information like currency. You head to your nominal post at the palace, a place where you mostly spend your time socializing and trying to look busy. As you walk down the covered corridors, you notice the subtle shift. A group of young nobles whispering by a pillar falls silent as you approach, their eyes darting towards you before they bow and scurry away. An older, more established courtier gives you a slow, appraising nod, a look that seems to say, "A good move, young man." The minister of the left is a powerful ally. Your new relationship is not just a personal matter. It is a public, political, and social statement. The pressure is immense. Every aspect of your affair is now under intense scrutiny. People are discussing the quality of your poetry in the initial exchange. They are debating the tastefulness of the gifts you sent. They are analyzing the political implications of a union between your family and hers. Your love story has been transformed into a piece of public theater, and you are the lead actor. This is the world depicted in the diaries of the era, like the Pillow Book of Sei Shona Gon or the Diary of Azumi Shikibu. These texts are filled with sharp, often catty observations about the romantic goings-on of the court. A clumsy poem, a mismatched color combination on a robe, a poorly timed visit no mistake went unnoticed or unmarked. Your reputation, and hers, is now incredibly fragile. Her situation is, in many ways, even more precarious. While you can move about the court, she remains cloistered in her family home. She only experiences the gossip secondhand, through the reports of Chun Agan and her other ladies. They bring her whispers of who is saying what, which powerful lady has expressed approval, and which rival family is quietly sneering. She has to navigate this storm of public opinion from behind her screens, relying on her wit and the loyalty of her entourage to maintain her dignity. The slightest misstep can be disastrous. Imagine this scenario. One evening, you are feeling tired after a long day of poetry contests and kickball camaraderie. You decide to send a rather short, simple note to her, just to say you are thinking of her. To you, it's a sweet, casual gesture, but in the hypercritical environment of the court, this note could be interpreted as a sign of waning interest. The gossip would start immediately. Did you hear? Lord Fujiwara only sent a 3-line poem last night, and on cheap paper. His passion is clearly cooling. The rumor would reach her, causing her immense anxiety and shame. What was an innocent act becomes a source of public humiliation. One peculiar aspect of this period was the intense focus on aesthetics as a measure of a person's inner worth. It was believed that a person with a refined aesthetic sense was, by definition, a better, more moral person. So, if your calligraphy was elegant, you were seen as having a noble soul. If her taste in robes was impeccable, she was considered virtuous. The flip side, of course, is that a single aesthetic mistake, a fashion faux pas by Heian standards, could be interpreted as a sign of a deep character flaw. It's a level of judgment that makes modern-day social media influencers look like amateurs. The question of why this gossip culture was so pervasive is something historians still analyze. Was it simply the inevitable result of a small, enclosed society with too much leisure time, or did it serve a more serious social function, acting as a powerful tool for enforcing the court's rigid codes of conduct? By making a mockery of those who breached etiquette, the court collectively reinforced its own values. The laughter and whispers were a form of social policing. You realize that you are no longer just two people in love. You are a symbol. Your relationship is a testament to your family's rising influence, or a potential weak point for your rivals to attack. Every visit you make to her, every gift you send, every poem you compose is now a public performance. You feel like you are walking on a tightrope, with the entire court watching and waiting for you to fall. And just as you are beginning to adjust to this new reality, a fresh complication arises. You hear through the grapevine that you are not the only one who has been sending her poems. Another suitor has been in the picture all along, and he is not happy. The news hits you like a physical blow. It arrives, as always, through the hush, confidential tones of your attendant. He tells you that Prince Atsuhiko, a minor imperial prince known for his arrogant demeanor and his genuinely brilliant poetry, had also been sending letters to her. His courtship had been running parallel to yours, a shadow competition you knew nothing about. Now that your relationship is semi-official, the prince has not gracefully bowed out. Instead, he has escalated his poetic campaign. Suddenly, things that seemed like victories feel fragile. Her initial delay in replying to your first letter, was it a sign of coincidence, or was she busy composing a reply to the prince? The ambiguity of her early poems, which you read as elegant restraint, now seems like a clever way of keeping her options open. You feel a hot flush of jealousy, followed by a cold wave of insecurity. This is not a competition that will be settled with swords. It will be fought on sheets of fine paper, with 31-syllable verses as your weapons. A poetry battle, or UTIIWC, was a common and highly respected form of entertainment at court. But this is different. This is personal. Your honor, her reputation, and the future of your relationship are at stake. The prince makes the first move. He sends a magnificent letter to her, a work of art designed not just to woo her, but to be seen and talked about by the entire court. He uses impossibly expensive, crimson paper imported from the mainland, dusted with gold leaf. His calligraphy is famously bold and dramatic. The poem itself is a masterpiece of passive aggression. He doesn't mention you by name, of course, but he compares himself to a steadfast pine tree, braving the winter storms, while alluding to other, lesser shrubs that offer only fleeting, seasonal blossoms. The attached branches, naturally, from a 1,000-year-old pine. The message is clear. He is permanent, and you are a temporary fling. The letter causes a sensation. Chun Dagon, with a troubled expression, shows it to you on your next visit. The pressure is now on you to respond. Not directly to him, but through her. She is the battlefield. Her reply, which you will now help her craft, will be the counterattack. You spend a long evening with her, sitting on opposite sides of her personal screen, because even now, in this state of marriage, direct, face-to-face conversation in a lighted room is still rare and reserved for moments of true intimacy. You are her strategist. The two of you, along with Chun-Aiken, become a war council. You cannot match the prince's ostentatious display. To try and use even more expensive paper would be vulgar. You must win on wit and subtlety. You decide to take his own metaphor and turn it against him. You advise her to reply on simple, to white paper, symbolizing her sincerity. For the poem, you suggest a verse that acknowledges the strength of the great pine tree, but praises the quiet beauty of the humble moss that grows at its base. forever loyal and close to the ground. It's a brilliant judo flip of his imagery, recasting his arrogance as distant and cold, and positioning you as the mouse's humble, constant, and intimate. To complete the message, she attaches not a branch, but a small, perfect piece of velvety green moss. This is the nature of the rivalry. It's a war of aesthetics and metaphors. There is a strange, almost absurd coldness to it that historians find fascinating. How much of this was driven by genuine passion, and how much by pure competitive ego? In the rigidly hierarchical world of the Heian court, where real power was often static, these cultural competitions became a vital arena for men to prove their worth and establish dominance. Winning a poetry contest against a rival could bring as much prestige as a promotion. The back and forth continues for weeks. He sends a poem lamenting the autumn rains, subtly implying they are the tears she weeps for having made the wrong choice. You reply, through her, with a poem that celebrates the same rain for nourishing the chrysanthemums in her garden, turning his negative image into a positive one. Each exchange is dissected and debated by the court gossips. Your reputation and the prince's are rising and falling with each verse. You feel a new kind of bond forming between you and her. Before, you were wooing her. Now, you are a team, allied against a common foe. You are defending your shared story. The crisis, as it so often does, has brought you closer. Finally, the prince makes a mistake. In his haste to compose a clever retort, he misuses a classical allusion. It's a tiny, obscure error that only a true literary scholar would notice. But in this world, it's a fatal flaw. The news of his mistake ripples through the palace. He is mocked in hushed tones for his intellectual sloppiness. He has lost face, a commodity more valuable than gold. Humiliated, the prince's letters stop. The flow of gold-dusted crimson paper dries up. You have won, but the victory is sobering. It has taught you a valuable lesson. In the world of Heian romance, there is no such thing as a secure victory. There are always rivals, always gossips, always another test just around the corner. Having weathered the storm of Prince Atsuhai's poetic assault, you feel a new sense of confidence in your connection. Your visits become a comfortable, cherished routine. Yet, even in this period of relative peace, you are still learning the incredibly complex and subtle language of this world. And one of the most important dialects you have yet to master is the language of sleeves. You've been granted a new privilege, a sign of deepening intimacy. Sometimes, when you visit, she will sit closer to the bamboo missue blind, and, as if by accident, she will allow the edge of her voluminous sleeves to rest just outside the screen. In your line of sight, it's a calculated reveal, a curated glimpse into her world, and it's packed with information. You are expected to read it like a book. The Juni Haito, or 12-layered robe, is a misnomer. The number of layers vary depending on the formality of the occasion and the season, sometimes reaching as many as 20, but the principle was the same. It was a wearable work of art, and the most expressive part was the Kasani no Airome, the color combinations of the layered silks. Each combination had a name and was strictly dictated by the season, the occasion, and even the age of the wearer. One evening, you arrived to see a cascade of sleeves peeking from beneath the blind. The outermost layer is a deep russet brown, followed by shades of fading orange, yellow, and finally a hint of vibrant green. You recognize it instantly. The combination is called Momiji Gasani, autumn maple leaves. It's late autumn, and her attire perfectly reflects the turning foliage in the garden outside. This isn't just a fashion choice. It's a statement of her sensitivity, her time into the natural world, and her impeccable taste. To show up in a spring combination, like drum blossom, at this time of year would be a social catastrophe, marking her as hopelessly out of touch. You, of course, are expected to notice and comment on it. You don't say, "Hey, nice sleeves." You incorporate it into your conversation, or better yet, into the next poem you send her. You might compose a verse about how the beauty of the autumn leaves in the famous Teatsuta River pales in comparison to the splendor of a certain sleeve you glimpsed. This shows that you are observant, appreciative, and a man of equal refinement. The fabrics themselves also tell a story. The rich sheen of patterned damask silk might be contrasted with the gauzy, almost transparent texture of a lighter silk gauze. The quality of the dye, the intricacy of the woven patterns, every detail is a clue to her family as wealth and status. One of the weird reflexes of the era, mentioned in the tale of Kanji, was for a lady to have robes so perfectly starched and arranged that the layers at her sleeve openings stood apart with the precision of pages in a book. This focus on sleeves created a strange synecdoche, where a part of the woman, the most beautifully adorned and least personal part, came to stand for the whole. In diaries and tales, men don't fall in love with a woman's eyes or her smile. They fall in love with the memory of her sleeves trailing from a carriage. It is a love affair with an aesthetic, with a carefully curated presentation of self. Historians often debate the psychological effect of this. Did it objectify women, reducing them to a collection of beautiful fabrics? Or did it, in a strange way, empower them, giving them a powerful, nonverbal language with which to express their personality, taste, and mood from behind the screen? Perhaps it was both. As your relationship deepens, the language of the sleeves becomes more personal. One night, after a minor disagreement relayed through your attendants, you arrive to find a sleeve combination that is beautiful but noticeably somber, deep, muted purples and grays, a combination usually reserved for mourning. It's a visual representation of her unhappiness, a silent rebuke. The next day, after you've sent a particularly heartfelt apology poem, you are rewarded with the sight of a brilliant, cheerful combination, perhaps Carrier rose, with its vibrant yellows and greens. She is telling you, without a single word, that you are forgiven. You begin to understand that this is not just about following rules. It's about using the rules to communicate. It's a silent, colorful, and incredibly nuanced conversation. You learn to appreciate the subtle difference between two shades of red, the artistic genius of an unexpected color pairing, the way the light catches the embroidered hem of an inner robe. You have become fluent in the language of silk. It's a strange expertise for a young man to have, but in this world, it's as vital as knowing how to handle a horse or draw a bow. Your love affair is teaching you to see the world in a new way, to find profound meaning and deep emotion in a simple sliver of color peeking from behind a bamboo screen. As your first year together unfolds, you discover that your entire relationship is governed by an invisible, unyielding force. The calendar. Love in Heian, Japan is not a spontaneous, free, flowing emotion. It is a seasonal performance, with specific rituals, themes, and emotional palettes assigned to each part of the year. To ignore this rhythm would be to reveal yourself as a hopeless rustic. Winter melts into a damp, chilly spring. The court's obsession shifts to the plum blossoms, the first flowers to bravely defy the cold. They are admired not for their showiness, but for their resilience and their subtle, spicy fragrance. Your poetry must now abandon the melancholy themes of late autumn and embrace the spirit of renewal. You and she exchange verses about the first plum blossom seen by the veranda, comparing its delicate beauty to her own. The gifts you send are no longer chrysanthemums or maple leaves, but a single, perfect branch of blossoming plum, chosen for the artistic arrangement of its flowers. You might even attend a winding water party Kyokayu Sui no En, where courtiers sit by a stream, compose poems, and float cups of sake down the current. It's a chance for a rare, semi-public outing, where you might catch a more substantial, if still fleeting, glimpse of her. Then comes the feverish, almost manic peak of spring, the cherry blossoms. The entire court is consumed by hanami, or flower viewing, but this isn't a casual picnic in the park. It's an intense, aesthetic, and deeply competitive activity. Expeditions are mounted to famous cherry viewing spots. You might take her, in her grand ox carriage, to a temple renowned for its ancient, weeping cherry trees. You don't sit together, you sit nearby, composing poems inspired by the same scenery, your shared experience creating a bond of unspoken understanding. The theme of your poetry becomes mono no aware, that quintessential Japanese sensibility, a gentle sadness and awareness of the transience of all things, perfectly embodied by the brief, brilliant life of the cherry blossom. Your love, like the blossoms, is beautiful but fragile, and this shared understanding adds a layer of poignant depth to your feelings. Summer arrives with its oppressive humidity, buzzing insects, and the constant threat of disease. The mood shifts. The vibrant energy of spring gives way to a kind of languid sensuality. Court life moves to the coolest parts of the house, near the gardens and ponds. Your visits are now timed for the evenings, hoping for a cool breeze. The poetry you write speaks of fireflies, the evening cool, and the longing for a refreshing rain. A popular, slightly risque gift for a lover in summer was a fan, but not just any fan. It would be a high OGI, an elegant folding fan made of cypress wood, exquisitely painted and perfumed with your personal incense. When she used it to cool herself, she would be surrounded by your scent. It was an incredibly intimate gesture. One of the more peculiar summer pastimes was the incense competition, or takamona awazi. You and other nobles would meticulously prepare your secret incense blends and submit them for judgment by a panel of connoisseurs. A victory in this competition would bring immense prestige. You spend weeks working on a new blend for her, one with cooler, lighter notes of camphor and Borneo, designed to be refreshing in the summer heat. It's a strange, almost comically serious endeavor, but your success or failure reflects directly on your status as a man of taste. Autumn, for many, is the true peak of the Heian aesthetic calendar. The garish heat of summer is replaced by a crisp, clear air and a profound sense of melancholy beauty. The focus shifts to viewing the autumn moon, admiring the crimson leaves, and listening to the mournful cry of the wild geese. Your love poems take on a deeper, more somber tone, reflecting on the passage of time and the inevitability of change. You spend an entire night with her, not talking, but simply sitting in silence on either side of her screen, watching the full moon traverse the sky. The shared silence is more profound than any conversation. Even the food you share is dictated by the season. The rice cakes you eat in the spring are flavored with mugwort. In summer, you might share chilled fruits. In autumn, it's chestnuts and mushrooms. This rigid seasonality is something historians still marvel at. Was it a genuine, deeply felt connection to the natural world, a form of nature worship inherited from older Shinto traditions? Or was it another layer of social control, a way of structuring life and behavior so rigidly that there was no room for messy, unpredictable spontaneity? It was likely a fusion of both, a sincere love for nature, codified into an unbreakable set of social rules. As the first snowflakes of winter begin to fall, you realize you have completed a full cycle. Your love has been filtered through the lens of 4 seasons, each one adding its own color, its own fragrance, its own unique flavor of joy and sadness. You have learned that in this world, love doesn't just happen. It is cultivated, curated, and performed in perfect harmony with the turning of the year. Just as you've settled into the comfortable, seasonal rhythm of your relationship, a shadow falls. It's a reality you've both chosen to ignore, a delicate subject that has been politely avoided in your poetic exchanges and whispered conversations. It's the issue of rank. You are a Fujiwara, from a powerful branch of the regent clan that effectively rules the country. Your future is a bright, clear path leading to high office and influence. She, while the daughter of a minister and a woman of impeccable breeding, belongs to a family of a slightly lesser, though still respectable, standing. Her father's influence is significant, but it does not rival the power wielded by your own kin. In the rigidly stratified society of Heian Kyo, this is not a minor detail. It's a fundamental barrier. Your relationship, as it stands, is a source of pleasure, a romantic and artistic union, but it can never be your primary, official one. You are destined for a political marriage, a union with a woman of equal or higher rank perhaps, even an imperial princess designed to consolidate your family's power. This is not a possibility. It is an inevitability, arranged by your parents from the moment you were born. The pressure begins subtly. Your father mentions, over a game of Go, the beauty and accomplishments of the daughter of the Minister of the Right, your family's main political rival. A marriage there would erode rifts and create an unshakable power block. Your mother comments on the impeccable pedigree of another young lady, whose grandmother was an empress. The messages are indirect, but the meaning is perfectly clear. It's time for you to think about your duty. This situation was the central, tragic engine of so many stories from the era. including the epic The Tale of Genji. The protagonist, Junji, wanders from one passionate love affair to another, but his primary, official wife is his political partner, Lady Aoi. His relationships are segregated. There is the wife of status and the woman or women of his heart. It was a system that, in theory, allowed men to fulfill both their family duty and their personal desires, but, in practice, it created a world of emotional turmoil, jealousy, and quiet heartbreak. You try to shield her from this pressure. You never speak of it during your visits, but she knows. The court is too small, the gossip's too efficient. She can read the signs. She hears that your family is exchanging formal gifts with another powerful clan. She notices the slightly pitying looks from other ladies. Junago and S reports become more somber. The joy of your visits is now tinged with a quiet, unspoken anxiety. The love you share is now a forbidden thing, not in a legal sense, but in a social and political one. It exists in a liminal space, a beautiful but unsustainable reality. This adds a desperate, almost frantic intensity to your time together. Every moment feels precious, stolen. The poems you exchange become more poignant, filled with images of fleeting dreams and paths that diverge. The question of how women in this position truly felt is a source of endless fascination for historians. The literature, mostly written by men, often portrays them as gracefully accepting their secondary status, content to be the cherished secret. But the diaries written by court women themselves, like the author of the Sarashina Nikki, tell a different story. They speak of profound loneliness, of jealousy, of long nights spent waiting for a visit that never comes because the man is with his official wife. They reveal the deep emotional cost of this socially sanctioned system of polygyny. Was it a pragmatic arrangement for political stability, or a recipe for widespread, silent suffering among women? The answer is almost certainly the latter. One evening, the unspoken becomes spoken. She asks you, her voice barely a whisper from behind her screen, if the rumors about the Minister of the Right's daughter are true. The question hangs in the air, heavy and fragile. You cannot lie to her. You admit that discussions are underway, that it is your family's wish. You try to reassure her, to tell her that this formal arrangement is a matter of politics, not hurt, and that she will always be the one you truly love. But you both know what this means. If you take an official, high-ranking wife, your visits to her will have to become less frequent, more discreet. Her status will be permanently relegated to that of a secondary consort, a beloved mistress. She will have to endure the humiliation of knowing you are sharing your life, your name, and your future with another woman. The beautiful, private world you have built together is about to be invaded by the harsh realities of ambition and duty. The love story is no longer just a poem. It has become a tragedy in the making. The looming threat of your arranged marriage casts a pall over everything. A cloud of anxiety follows you, a constant, low-level hum of dread. In a world where you have so little direct control over your own destiny, you find yourself turning to the same source of guidance as everyone else in the Heian court. The supernatural. You become obsessed with omens, prophecies, and the intricate, all-encompassing rules of Anmayo-do, the way of yin and yang. Your first stop is the Anmayo-yo, the Bureau of Yin and Yang, a powerful government department staffed by masters of divination, astronomy, and calendar making. These men, the Amioji, are not fringe mystics. They are respected scholar officials, and their influence permeates every aspect of court life. You arrange a private consultation with a famous master, a man said to be able to read the patterns of the stars as easily as you read a poem. Use it before him in a quiet, incense-filled room as he consults his complex charts and tortoisile divination tools. You ask him about your future, about the political marriage, about her. He speaks in riddles and metaphors, telling you that the star of your family's fortune is rising, but that it is crossing paths with a smaller, fainter star, creating a pattern of unfavorable entanglement. He doesn't give you a clear answer, but he plants a seed of superstitious fear. Now, you begin to see bad omens everywhere. A crow cawing from a dead branch in your garden is no longer just a bird. It's a warning. An unusual cloud formation is a celestial message of impending doom. You start having your dreams interpreted, each one scrutinized for hidden meanings about your romantic predicament. The most pervasive and maddening aspect of this new obsession is the system of directional taboos, or katategai, the Amyoji determined, on a daily basis, which directions were auspicious and which were blocked by the movements of various deities. To travel in a forbidden direction was to risk encountering misfortune, illness, or even death. This system turned the simple act of visiting her into a logistical nightmare. Imagine this. You plan to visit her on a Tuesday evening. Her estate lies to the northeast of yours. But on that day, the northeast is declared a blocked direction. You cannot go directly. To do so would be to fly in the face of cosmic order. So, you must perform a directional detour. On Monday night, you have to leave your home and travel in an auspicious direction, say, to the south and spend the night at a friend's house. Then, on Tuesday, you can proceed from your friend's house to her estate, because from that new starting point, the direction is no longer blocked. This practice, which seems utterly bizarre to the modern mind, was a routine part of life for the Heian nobility. The diaries of the era are filled with complaints about the inconvenience. A courtier might write about having to miss an important meeting or cancel a romantic tryst because of a directional taboo. It's a perfect example of how deeply superstition was woven into the fabric of daily existence. The historical debate around Onmyodu is fascinating. Was it a genuine, deeply held spiritual belief system? Or was it, for some, a convenient social tool? A powerful nobleman could, for instance, use a directional taboo as a polite excuse to avoid an unwanted social engagement or a meeting with a political rival. I'm so sorry I can't attend your poetry gathering, but my route is blocked by the fearsome deity Heian. Such a shame. It provided a cosmically sanctioned way to say no. You also become fixated on choosing lucky days kikijitsu for your visits. You consult the calendar constantly, looking for days when the celestial alignments are favorable for romance. This means your visits are no longer dictated by passion or opportunity, but by a complex, esoteric schedule. Your love affair is being micromanaged by the gods. She, too, is caught in this web of superstition. Shinnegan brings reports that she has been commissioning prayers at a local temple and has hired her own diviner to assess the future. You are both trying to find some sense of control, some way to influence a future that feels like it's slipping out of your hands. You are fighting a political battle you cannot win, so you appeal to a higher, more mysterious court of cosmic justice. One evening, you are about to set out to see her. The day is lucky. The direction is clear. But as you are about to step into your carriage, your attendant points to the sky. A long, thin cloud, shaped like a sword, is pointing directly at the moon. It's an omen of separation. You hesitate. Your rational mind tells you it's just a cloud. But the fear, planted and watered by weeks of anxiety, is too strong. You cancel the visit. You send a note of apology, citing a sudden illness. You sit in your room, staring at the ominous cloud, feeling utterly powerless, a prisoner of your own superstitions. The external pressures are now being amplified by an internal crisis of faith and fear. Amidst the swirling anxieties of unlucky stars and looming political marriages, a more mundane, yet equally potent, source of tension begins to surface. It's a reality of your world so fundamental that it's rarely questioned. Polygyny. As a nobleman of your station, it is not only accepted but expected that you will have relationships with multiple women. There is your primary, high-status wife, the Kita Kata lady of the northern chambers, who manages your main household and bears your legitimate heirs. And then there are the others. Before your passionate affair began, you had other, more casual connections. There is a lady from a less distinguished family whom you visited occasionally for years. A comfortable and uncomplicated arrangement. There is a talented dancer from the corps of palace performers who sometimes receives your poetic notes. These are not grand love affairs, but part of the texture of your life as a Heian aristocrat. When you are consumed with the initial stages of your new courtship, these other relationships faded into the background. You were entirely focused on your primary prize. But now, as the prospect of your official marriage makes your time with her feel fraught and precious, you find yourself, almost unconsciously, reverting to old patterns. The stress sends you seeking comfort in the familiar. One night, after a particularly tense discussion with your father about your marital duties, you feel a wave of despair. The thought of visiting her and facing the unspoken sadness in her voice is too much to bear. So you do something you haven't done in months. You send a note to the other lady, the one from the less distinguished family. Your visit to her is easy. There are no high stakes, no soul-crushing anxieties, no discussions of omens or rivals. It is a simple, physical comfort, a temporary escape from the emotional complexities of your real love. But there are no true secrets at court. A servant from that lady's household sees your carriage. He mentions it to his cousin, who is an attendant in the household of a distant relative of Chun Aiken. Within days, the news reaches her. The next time you visit, the atmosphere is glacial. She is formally polite, but the warmth is gone. Chun-ago in his expression is stony. Through her attendant, she sends you a poem. It's not a fiery verse of jealousy. That would be unseemly. It's a poem of exquisite, heartbreaking sorrow. She compares herself to a rustic village, waiting patiently by the road, only to watch her traveler pass by on his way to a more bustling capital. The pain is not in the accusation, but in the profound sense of abandonment. You are caught. You try to explain, to apologize, but your words feel clumsy and hollow. You are forced to confront the emotional fault of a system you've always taken for granted. For a man, moving between women was a sign of his desirability and influence. For the women involved, it was a constant source of insecurity and heartache. The entire structure was built on a foundation of male privilege and female emotional labor. The diary of a 10th century noblewoman, known only as the mother of Michitsune, provides a raw, searing account of this reality. Her work, The Kajaro Nikki the Gossamer Years, is a relentless chronicle of her unhappy marriage to a high-ranking Fujiwara. She details her obsessive jealousy, her long nights spent waiting for him, her rage and depression when he visits other women. She describes painstakingly tracking his movements, noting the direction his carriage takes when he leaves her. A heartbreaking piece of emotional detective work. It's a powerful counter-narrative to the romanticized ideals found in courtly tales. The historical debate here is nuanced. Some scholars argue that Heian women, raised within this system, accepted it as the natural order of things, finding solace and solidarity in their own female-centric communities within the household. Others, pointing to texts like the Kajaro Nikki, argue that it caused deep and lasting psychological damage, and that the elegant surface of court life concealed a vast reservoir of female suffering. Your transgression creates a deep rift between you. It takes weeks of patient, sincere effort to begin to repair the damage. You cease all contact with your other relations. You send her letter after letter, filled with the most heartfelt poetry you have ever composed. You send lavish gifts, the rare, perfumed inkstone, a bolt of silk in her favorite crimson, imported at great expense, a zither with strings of twisted silk. Slowly, painstakingly, you begin to earn back her trust. She finally agrees to see you again, but something has irrevocably changed. A layer of innocence has been stripped away. Your relationship is no longer a perfect, private title. It has been tainted by the messy, painful reality of the world you both inhabit. You now understand that the greatest threat to your love is not just rival suitors or political machinations, but the very structure of your society. A structure that grants you a freedom that will always be the source of her pain. The fragile truce you brokered is shattered by the one force you cannot fight with poetry or charm. Your own family. The unofficial discussions about your political marriage are over. A formal proposal has been made and accepted. Your father summons you to his chambers, a space reserved for the most serious of matters. The air is thick with the scent of old wooden authority. He doesn't ask you. He informs you. You will be married to Lady Murasaki no, not the famous author, but the daughter of the powerful minister of the right at the start of the new year. Your protests are brushed aside with a wave of his hand. He speaks of duty, of honor, of the generations of Fujiwara who have sacrificed personal feelings for the good of the clan. He reminds you that this alliance will secure your family as dominance at court for a generation. Your personal happiness is a trivial matter in the face of such grand ambition. You may keep your diversions, he says, his voice devoid of emotion. as long as they remain discreet. But this is your duty. It is settled. The weight of his words is crushing. You feel like a pawn in a game you have no hope of winning. The illusion of control you'd cultivated through your romantic pursuits and superstitious rituals evaporates, leaving you cold and powerless. This is a stark reality of your existence. Your life is not your own. It is an asset belonging to your family. You are now faced with an impossible choice. To defy your father would be unthinkable. It would mean social ostracism, disinheritance, and bringing shame upon your entire lineage. You would become a non-person, a ghost haunting the edges of the society you were born to lead. But to obey means betraying the woman you love, consigning her to a life in the shadows and breaking a bond that has become the center of your world. And it was brutally present in the lives of the Heian aristocracy. While the tales and poems celebrated romantic love, the reality of marriage was almost entirely pragmatic. Marriage's were strategic mergers, designed to consolidate wealth, property, and political power. Dae-sun's love life was his own affair, but his choice of a primary wife was a matter of state. The formal betrothal ceremonies begin, a series of stiff, impersonal rituals. Gifts are exchanged between the families, bolts of silk, ornate swords, rare ceramics. You have a formal, excruciatingly awkward meeting with your future father-in-law. You still have not even met your betrothed, Lady Murasaki. You have only heard of her reputation for beauty, her skill in calligraphy, and her cold, aloof demeanor. You have to break the news to her. This is the hardest thing you have ever had to do. You visit her on a cold, rainy night that seems to mirror the misery in your own heart. You don't even try to speak through the usual intermediaries. You ask Shun Aegon to let you speak with her directly, a breach of protocol that signals the gravity of the moment. She agrees. For the first time, you sit with her in the same room, with only her portable screen, the Kicho, between you. You can see the silhouette of her form through the thin silk panels. You tell her everything, your voice cracking with a shame and sorrow that you can't conceal. On the other side of the screen, there is only silence. A deep, heavy silence that is more painful than any accusation. You can hear the soft, rhythmic tatter of the rain on the roof, a sound that once felt soothing but now feels like the weeping of the world. After a long time, she speaks, her voice so low you can barely hear it. She doesn't rage or cry. She simply says, "It was always to be this way." There is a profound, devastating fatalism in her words, an acceptance of a fate she has seen coming all along. It's the voice of someone who understands the rules of the game better than you do. The question of women's agency in these arranged marriages is a complex one for historians. While they had little to no say in the choice of their partner, they were not entirely powerless. A high-ranking wife held considerable authority within the household. She managed the staff, controlled the finances of her own estates, and her social influence could be significant. However, this power was contingent on her producing a male heir and maintaining the dignity of her husband's lineage. For a secondary consort, like the woman you love is about to become, the situation was far more precarious. Her security and status depended entirely on the continued affection and patronage of her lover. You leave her house that night feeling hollowed out, a ghost of yourself. The path ahead is clear, laid out for you by your family and your society. You will marry a stranger for power and prestige. You will be a good son, a dutiful husband, a powerful courtier. You will have everything you are supposed to want, and you will have lost the only thing that ever truly mattered. The rain continues to fall, washing away the last traces of color from your world. In the weeks that follow, a profound sense of melancholy settles over you, a feeling so deep and pervasive it feels like a physical part of your being. The world, which once seemed so vibrant with secret meanings and poetic possibilities, now appears gray and washed out. This is not the sharp pain of a fresh wound, but a dull, chronic ache you are experiencing, in its truest and most personal form, the aesthetic and emotional concept of mono no aware. This term, famously championed by the 18th century scholar Moto Ori, Norineiga as the essential spirit of the tale of Genji, is notoriously difficult to translate. It's often rendered as the pathos of things or a sensitivity to ephemera. But it's more than just sadness. It's a deep, gentle, and strangely beautiful empathy for the transient nature of life. It's the bittersweet recognition that everything a cherry blossom, a love affair. Life itself is beautiful precisely because it is fleeting. Before, you experienced mono no aware as a literary theme, a sophisticated sentiment to be woven into poetry about falling leaves or the setting sun. Now, you are living it. You see it everywhere. You watch a single paulownia leaf drift down from a tree in the garden, and you feel a profound connection to its silent, graceful descent into oblivion. It is a mirror of your own happiness, once so vibrant, now detached and falling away. Your visits to her continue, but they are suffused with this new, shared sadness. The frantic passion and the intellectual sparring are gone, replaced by a quiet, almost mournful tenderness. You spend long hours in silence, listening to the rain or the cry of a distant deer. The silence is no longer about anticipation or mystery. It's a shared acknowledgement of the unspoken, a mutual understanding that your time together is now a finite, precious resource. Her poetry has changed, too. It is no longer witty or flirtatious. It is filled with images of dew evaporating in the morning sun, of dreams that vanish upon waking, of boats setting off on a journey with no return. She is chronicling the slow, graceful death of your shared world. Each poem is a small, perfect crystallization of your mutual heartbreak. One of the central debates among scholars of Japanese literature is whether mono no aware is a philosophy of resignation, or one of profound appreciation. Is it a passive acceptance of fate that encourages inaction? Or is it a call to cherish the present moment with a heightened sense of awareness, precisely because it will not last? As you live through it, you feel it is both. You feel a paralyzing sense of resignation to your political fate. But at the same time, every moment with her feels intensely, painfully alive. The taste of the tea she has prepared, the specific scent of her incense, the way the moonlight falls on the screen, these small details become overwhelmingly precious. Imbued with the beauty of a last goodbye, this feeling changes you. The ambitious, slightly arrogant young man you were is being stripped away, leaving someone more contemplative, more empathetic. You begin to notice the quiet suffering of others at court. You see the forced smiles on the faces of other women in secondary positions. You hear the note of melancholy in the songs of the court musicians. You realize that your personal tragedy is not unique. It is the universal condition of your world. A world built on a foundation of beautiful, elegant, and heartbreaking compromises. Your impending marriage to Lady Murasaki feels like an event happening to someone else. A formal, empty ritual that has nothing to do with your inner life. You go through the motions, attending the ceremonies, accepting the congratulations, but your spirit is elsewhere. It is in a quiet room in another part of the city, sharing a silent moment of perfect, sorrowful understanding with the only person who truly knows you. One evening, she shows you to Heian, a small painting she has been working on. It's a simple ink wash on silk, depicting a small, unmanned boat drifting away from a shore lined with weeping willows. There are no people in the painting, but it is the most profound and personal statement she has ever made. The boat is your love, untethered and drifting into the vast, empty sea of the future. You look at it, and for the first time, you truly understand the heartbreaking beauty of your situation. Your love will not end in a fiery confrontation or a dramatic breakup. It will simply fade, like the ink in her painting, a beautiful, sorrowful stain on the fabric of your memory. This is mono no aware. It is the art of the graceful defeat. In your grief-stricken state, you become careless. The meticulous attention to detail that defined the early stages of your courtship has been eroded by your pervasive sense of doom. You are going through the motions, and the sophisticated language of your love affair, which once required such intense focus, is becoming a chore. And one night, you make a mistake, a small, but potentially fatal error. It's late. You're exhausted from a day of tedious prenuptial ceremonies, and you know you should send a note to her. You haven't seen her in several days, and you owe her some word of reassurance. But the creative wellspring of your poetic talent feels completely dry. You can't summon the energy for a fresh, heartfelt composition. So you do something you would have once considered anathema. You take a shortcut. You remember a fairly generic, but elegant, poem about longing and sleepless nights that you once composed for a past poetry contest. It's good enough, you think. You quickly transcribe it onto a sheet of decent quality paper, not the best, but not the worst. In your haste, you forget to perfume it. You attach a rather uninspired-looking chrysanthemum, simply because it's the closest flower at hand. You give it to your attendant and, with a sense of relief at having completed the task, you go to bed. You have, in essence, sent her a form letter. The response is swift and brutal. But it's not a sad poem or a furious outburst. It is far worse. It is silence. For 3 days, you hear nothing. This is not the calculated, coquettish silence of the early courtship. This is a dead, empty silence. It's a slammed door, a terminated connection. On the 4th day, your attendant returns from her residence looking shaken. He wasn't even granted entry. The letter you sent was returned to him at the gate by a junior servant, not even by the esteemed Shanagan. It wasn't even opened. Your heart plummets. This is an insult of the highest order. A public and deliberate severing of ties. You have committed a cardinal sin in the Heian rulebook of love. Your lazy, recycled poem was not just a lapse in creativity. It was a profound sign of disrespect. It told her that she was no longer worthy of your best effort, that she was now an obligation, a recipient of your second-hand sentiments. The unperfumed paper screamed of indifference. The generic chrysanthemum showed a lack of personal thought. In this highly symbolic world, you might as well have sent her a letter declaring that you no longer cared. This kind of mistake is a recurring motif in the literature of the era. In the tale of Genji, a character's fall from grace can often be traced back to a single, poorly written letter or an inappropriate gift. It highlights the incredible pressure these courtiers were under to constantly perform their refinement. There were no off days. A single moment of emotional or intellectual laziness could have devastating social consequences. The historical accuracy of such dramatic reactions is, of course, open to interpretation. Were relationships really this fragile? Or do the stories exaggerate these missteps for dramatic effect? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. While a single bad poem probably wouldn't end a long-standing, deep relationship, a pattern of such carelessness would certainly be read as a sign of cooling affections, potentially leading to a breach. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. You are frantic. You have inadvertently taken her quiet, dignified sadness and trampled on it with your careless indifference. You have added a deep, personal insult to her already profound sense of loss. You immediately set about trying to undo the damage. You spend an entire day composing the most beautiful, sincere, and self-flagellating apology poem imaginable. You compare yourself to a fool who, blinded by fog, failed to recognize the moon. You write it on the most expensive, exquisite paper you can find, a deep purple sheet reserved for imperial communication. You perfume it with an incense so rare you have to purchase it at an exorbitant price from a foreign merchant. You attach a single, perfect white rose, a flower so out of season. It must have been painstakingly cultivated in a hothouse, symbolizing the purity of your regret and the lengths you are willing to go to prove it. You send this lavish apology, and then you wait. The next 24 hours are the longest of your life. You have broken the unspoken rules that held your fragile world together. You have failed the test of aesthetic sincerity. You fear that this time, your mistake might be the one that brings the entire, beautiful, sorrowful structure of your love crashing down for good. Your grand, desperate apology works. A reply comes, not with the old warmth, but at least it comes. It's a short, truly elegant poem on pale gray paper, acknowledging your regret but not yet offering full forgiveness. The door has been unlocked, but it is not yet open. You have a chance, a slim one, to repair the breach. But just as you begin the painstaking work of mending the delicate threads of your connection, a new and far more terrifying crisis erupts. Word arrives from her household that she has fallen gravely ill. The news is sparse and frightening. She is seized by fevers and chills, plagued by nightmares, and her strength is rapidly failing. In your modern mind, you would immediately think of a virus, an infection, a physiological cause, but this is high in Japan. The understanding of medicine is a complex and, to you, bewildering mix of herbal remedies and profound superstition. While doctors with knowledge of Chinese medicinal practices exist, the primary diagnosis for any sudden, severe illness is almost always supernatural. She is not sick. She is possessed. The belief is that the living world is permeable, easily infiltrated by unseen forces. These can be angry nature spirits, mischievous demons, most commonly, a mononoke, a vengeful spirit of a living or dead person. It is believed that intense, unresolved emotions like jealousy, rage, or frustrated love can cause a person's spirit to leave their body, often unconsciously, and attack the object of their ire. Immediately, the household and the court gossips begin to speculate who would have a motive to curse her. The most obvious suspect is the jealous spirit of a rival lover. Perhaps it is Prince Atsuhiko, his poetic humiliation festering into a psychic attack. Or maybe it's the spirit of another of your former dalliances, a woman you abandoned who now seeks revenge from the shadows. The most terrifying possibility, a whisper that no one dares to say too loudly, is that the vengeful spirit could be coming from your new fiancée, Lady Murasaki. Is her jealousy over your continuing affection for her rival so potent that it has manifested as a malevolent force? This idea, dramatized most famously in the tale of Genji where the spirit of Lady Rokujo repeatedly attacks Genji's other lovers, was a very real fear. It turned romantic rivalries into potential life and death struggles fought on a spiritual plane. The question of whether the Heian people genuinely believed in Mononoke, or if it was a metaphor for psychological distress, is a major point of discussion for historians and literary scholars. Was a possession simply the premodern way of describing and diagnosing severe depression, anxiety, or what we might now call a psychosomatic illness, when a woman, trapped in a powerless and stressful situation, fell physically ill? Blaming a spirit was a way to give her suffering a name and an external cause, making it something that could be fought. Her family bypasses the herbalists and immediately calls in the experts in spiritual warfare, a team of Buddhist monks from a powerful temple. They arrive at the house and begin their work. The air, once filled with perfume and poetry, now resounds with the rhythmic chanting of sutras and the deep, booming sound of a temple gong. The monks perform loud, dramatic exorcism rituals, designed to drive the malevolent spirit from her body. You are forbidden from seeing her, as your presence might agitate the spirit further. You are left to wait outside the circle of sacred power. Consumed with a helpless, gut-wrenching fear, you pace your chambers, sending messengers every hour for updates. The reports are vague. The chants seem to have little effect. Her condition worsens. In your desperation, you do something that shows how completely you have succumbed to the beliefs of your time. You commission your own set of rituals. You pay a group of mountain ascetics, Yamabushai, known for their powerful magic, to perform rites of protection on your behalf. You make lavish donations to prominent temples, dedicating the merit of your offerings to her recovery. You are fighting a supernatural battle by proxy, throwing money and prayers at an enemy you cannot see. Days turn into a week. You are gaunt, sleepless, and half mad with worry. The elegant, refined world of courtly love seems like a distant, frivolous dream. This is now a raw, primal struggle for survival. Oh, the poetry, the beautiful robes, the carefully chosen flowers, they are useless against this unseen enemy. You are stripped of all your courtly sophistication, reduced to a state of pure, terrifying fear for the life of the woman you love. You stare out at the perfectly raked gravel of your garden, but you don't see its beauty. You see only the face of a vast, dark, and hostile universe, and you realize how fragile the line is between life and death, order and chaos. In this beautiful, haunted world, after weeks of terror, the fever breaks. The chanting monks declare victory, claiming to have driven the Mononoke away. Her recovery is slow, but she is out of danger. The relief you feel is so profound it leaves you weak, a hollowed-out vessel finally refilled with hope. You are allowed to visit again, and while you still don't see her, the reports from Chanagan are tinged with a cautious optimism. The crisis is past, and in its wake, The petty grievance of your thoughtless poem seems to have been washed away by the tide of genuine fear and concern. The bond between you, tested by fire, feels stronger and deeper than ever, but the world does not stand still. Your wedding to Lady Murasaki is drawing inexorably closer. The formal exchange of gifts is complete. The date is set. And just as a semblance of peace has returned to your life, you receive a formal request for a meeting. It's from her father, the minister of the left. This is highly unusual. Up to this point, he has been a powerful but distant figure, a man who has maintained a careful, strategic fiction of being unaware of the details of your affair. For him to request a direct meeting signifies a major shift. You agree. Of course, your mind racing with 1,000 anxious possibilities. What does he want? Is he going to forbid you from seeing her after your marriage? Is he going to demand some form of compensation for the potential dishonor you brought upon his daughter? You go to his residence, but you are not led to the familiar women's quarters in the rear. You are escorted to his official reception hall, a grand, imposing chamber used for political business. He is seated on a raised dais, a formidable figure surrounded by the trappings of his power. The atmosphere is formal, official, and deeply intimidating. He greets you with impeccable, chilling courtesy. He thanks you for the concern you showed during his daughter's illness. He discusses the weather, the recent appointments at court, and new policy on taxation. The conversation is a masterpiece of polite, meaningless small talk, and it stretches for what feels like an eternity. You know this is a game, a display of his status and control. He is making you wait. Finally, he gets to the point, but in typical Heian fashion, he does so indirectly. He begins to talk about his daughter's future. He mentions her delicate health, her sensitive nature. He speaks of his desire to see her settled and secure. He says he is considering having her take vows and become a Buddhist nun, a common path for women in difficult circumstances, as it would remove her from the complex and often cruel games of courtly romance and politics. Your blood runs cold. For her to become a nun would mean the absolute end of your relationship. She would shave her head, renounce all worldly pleasures, and be, for all intents and purposes, dead to you. You can't tell if he is serious or if this is a threat, a negotiating tactic. Then, he shifts his gaze and looks at you directly for the first time. The small, well-appointed residence has recently become available in the Eastern Hills. He says, his voice casual. It is quiet, discreet, and has a lovely view of the city, a place where someone of a sensitive disposition could live peacefully, away from the gossip of the court, provided they had a reliable patron to ensure their comfort. The message, wrapped in layers of polite suggestion, is crystal clear. He is not forbidding your relationship. He is formalizing it. He is offering you a deal. If you want to continue seeing his daughter after your official marriage, you must take full, permanent responsibility for her. You must set her up in her own separate household as your official, acknowledged mistress. You must provide for her financially, support her staff, and give her the status and security that comes with being the recognized consort of a powerful man. This was a common, if unstated, arrangement in Heian society. It was the honorable solution to the problem of a high-ranking man's love for a lower-ranking woman. This moment, this quiet, tense negotiation with her father, is the pivot on which your future turns. How did these conversations actually play out? The historical record is, unsurprisingly, quiet on such private family matters. The literature gives us dramatic confrontations, but the reality was likely much more like this, a series of subtle, coded proposals where everyone understood the stakes without ever stating them plainly. It was business, conducted with the language of poetry. He is essentially asking you to put your money and your reputation where your heart is. It's a test of your commitment, far more binding than any 3-night vigil. To accept means a significant financial and social obligation for the rest of your life. It means navigating the endless complexities of maintaining 2 separate households, and dealing with the inevitable jealousy and rivalry between your official wife and your beloved mistress. To refuse, however, is unthinkable. It would be a public declaration that your love was nothing more than a youthful infatuation, and he would likely follow through on his threat to send her to a convent. You look at the old minister, a master player in the game of court politics. and you realize he has backed you into a corner with perfect, ruthless elegance. There is only one possible answer. You bow your head and agree to his terms. You have saved your love, but at a cost you are only just beginning to understand. The deal is struck. The new residence in the Eastern Hills is secured. The arrangements are made. You have, in theory, achieved the best possible outcome in an impossible situation. You have fulfilled your duty to your family by proceeding with your political marriage, and you have honored your love for her by establishing her as your official consort. You have navigated the treacherous currents of your society and emerged, seemingly, intact, but the reality is far more hollow. Your grand, state-managed wedding to Lady Murasaki is a spectacular, empty pageant. You go through the rituals in a daze, a puppet performing for the court. Your new wife is beautiful, accomplished, and as cold and remote as a winter moon. Your interactions are governed by a flawless, frigid etiquette. There is no warmth, no connection, only the silent, shared understanding of a political contract. Your main residence is now a place of formal duty, a gilded cage you share with a stranger. Your heart, your life, remains in the small house in the Eastern Hills, but even there, things are different. The shadow of your official marriage looms over everything. Your visit, while now legitimized by the arrangement with her father, feels stolen, tinged with guilt and divided loyalty. The simple joy is gone, replaced by a complex tangle of obligations. She tries to be understanding, to accept her new role with the grace and resignation expected of her, but the strain is visible. There are nights when you are expected to be at your main residence for a formal event, and you have to send a note of apology to her. Each note is a small betrayal. There are days when a lavish gift arrives from your new wife's family, a public display of their alliance, and the news inevitably reaches her, a painful reminder of her secondary status. The situation isn't tenable. The constant division of your time, your resources, and your emotions is exhausting. The logistics of managing two households is a nightmare. The court gossips are relentless, dissecting your every move, comparing the gifts you give to each woman, speculating on who you favor. You are living to lives, and failing at both of them. The breaking point comes from her. After months of enduring this polite, painful charade, she can no longer bear it. The constant, quiet humiliation is a poison, slowly eroding the love it was meant to protect. One evening, you arrive at the house in the hills to find Shun Aiken waiting for you. Her expression grave, she hands you a letter. It's written on a simple, stark white piece of paper. The calligraphy is as beautiful as ever, but it is filled with a terrible, resolute finality. The poem within is a WAKRUTA, a farewell poem. It speaks of a boat that must be cut loose from its mooring, not because the harbor is unkind, but because the tide is pulling it in a direction it cannot follow. It is a poem not of anger, but of profound, heartbreaking necessity. She is ending it. She writes that the arrangement, meant to save their love, is instead destroying it, turning something beautiful into a source of constant pain in comparison. She cannot live as a shadow, a constant reminder of what she is not. She releases you from your obligation. She asks you not to visit again. This is a scenario that, while dramatic, reflects a certain reality for women in the Heian period. While they had limited power to choose their partners, they did possess a kind of veto power by refusing a suitor or, in extreme cases, ending a relationship. For a woman to take this step was a huge risk. It could mean social isolation and financial ruin if her patron accepted her decision. But it was also an act of ultimate self-preservation, a way of reclaiming her dignity in a system designed to strip it from her. Did women really initiate breakups in this way? The literature, especially works written from a female perspective, suggests they did. They were not always passive victims of fate. Faced with an unbearable situation, they could, and sometimes did, choose solitude over a life of compromised honor. It was a choice between a slow, public death of the spirit and a quiet, private one. You read the letter again and again, the words blurring through your tears. You have been so focused on your own suffering, your own divided loyalties, that you failed to see the true cost of this arrangement for her. You tried to possess both worlds, and in doing so, you made hers unbearable. You plead with Shonagan. You promise to change, to find a better way, but her decision is final. The gatekeeper, who once conspired to bring you together, is now the guardian of her solitude. You are turned away. The love story, which survived rivals, illness, and family pressure, has finally been broken by the quiet, unendurable weight of its own flawed solution. You walk away from the house in the hills for the last time, the farewell poem clutched in your hand. A final, perfect monument to everything you have lost. Years pass. The sharp, searing pain of the final farewell slowly dulls into a chronic, phantom ache. You become the man you were always destined to be, a successful courtier, a respected minister, a dutiful husband to your official wife. You have children, heirs who will carry on the Fujiwara name. Your life is a model of high-end success. You have power, wealth, and status. On the surface, you are complete, but there is a hollow space inside you that has never been filled. You never hear from her directly again. The connection is severed as cleanly as if by a sword. But you hear whispers. Shonagan, loyal to the last, remains with her, and through the ever-present court grapevine, you receive occasional, third-hand news. She did not enter a convent, as her father had threatened. She lives a life of quiet seclusion in the house in the hills. The one you provided for her. You continue to support her financially. The silent, anonymous patronage that is your last, unspoken link to her. You hear that she spends her days painting, reading, and composing poetry that she shares with no one. She has built a world for herself out of her solitude. Your life with Lady Murasaki, your wife, settles into a kind of peaceful, respectful coldness. You develop a working partnership, managing your household and your political obligations with efficient grace. You even father a son with her, securing the lineage. But there is no passion, no intimacy, no sharing of souls. It is a marriage of two polite, lonely strangers living under the same roof. This type of emotionally barren but functional high society marriage is a recurring image in Heian literature, reflecting a social reality where the emotional and practical spheres of life were often completely detached. Then, one autumn night, nearly a decade after your last meeting, a storm rolls in. It's a wild, lashing rain, the kind that rattles the shutters and makes the whole world feel dark and tumultuous. You are alone in your chambers, unable to sleep. The sound of the rain against the roof is a familiar rhythm, and it begins to pull at the threads of your memory. You find yourself thinking of another rainy night, long ago, when you sat in agonizing silence on the other side of a screen, telling her of your betrothal. The memory is so vivid it feels like yesterday. You can almost smell the damp earth of her garden, hear the soft rustle of her silk robes. They wave as profound. Unexpected grief washes over you, as fresh and as powerful as it was all those years ago. You pick up your flute, the one you haven't played with any real feeling for years. Without thinking, you begin to play an old folk song, a simple, mournful melody that she once mentioned was a favorite from her childhood. The notes drift out into the stormy night, a lonely sound filled with a decade of unspoken longing. And then, you hear it, faintly, from a distant part of the sprawling estate. You hear the sound of a koto, the long, 13-string zither. Someone is playing the same song. The notes are hesitant at first, as if plucked from a half-forgotten dream, but they grow steadier, clearer. It is Lady Murasaki, your wife, the stranger you share a house with. This is a moment of pure, stunning revelation. In all your years of marriage, you never knew she played the koto. You never knew she liked the same sad, old songs as you. You have lived alongside this woman for a decade, and you know nothing of the inner life she has kept hidden behind her own impenetrable screen of perfect etiquette. The idea that even a primary, political wife had a rich, secret inner world is something modern historians and readers often forget. We tend to see them as political pawns or cold antagonists in the great love stories. But they were women with their own passions, their own sorrows, their own unseen heartbreaks. The literature of the era, when read carefully, hints at this. The cold Lady Aoi in the tale of Genji is a far more complex and sympathetic character than she first appears. She, too, is a victim of the system, trapped in a loveless marriage, her pride her only defense. You stop playing your flute and just listen. The sound of her koto, weaving through the sound of the rain, is the most profound communication you have ever shared with her. It's not a declaration of love, but it is a confession of a shared loneliness, a mutual acknowledgement of the quiet sadness that has defined both your lives. In that moment, you see her not as a political ally or a symbol of your duty, but as another human being, a fellow prisoner in the beautiful, gilded cage of your world. The rain continues to fall, but for the first time in years, you don't feel entirely alone in your sorrow. The past is still a ghost that haunts you, but for the first time, you realize that your present has its own quiet, undiscovered country, its own sad, beautiful music. The shared, unspoken moment of music during the storm doesn't magically transform your marriage into a passionate romance, but it does thaw the glacier between you and your wife, Lady Murasaki. A quiet, tentative understanding begins to grow. You start to talk, not about politics or household management, but about small things, a poem you both admire, a painting, the memory of a particular festival from your youth. You discover that behind her mask of icy perfection lies a keen intellect and a dry, surprising wit. You are building a different kind of love, not the fiery, all-consuming passion of your youth, but a calmer, gentler affection built on shared experience and mutual respect. It is a love that tastes of autumn, not spring. As you grow older, you achieve the highest ranks at court. You become a powerful and influential figure. Your counsel sought by the emperor himself. Your life is full of the grand ceremonies and weighty responsibilities you were raised for. And in this new position, you begin to hear your own story told back to you. It happens at a poetry gathering. A group of young, ambitious courtiers are discussing the great love affairs of the past. One of them, trying to impress the others, begins to recount a semi-legendary tale about a brilliant young Fuji warlord from the previous generation and his passionate, ill-fated romance with the beautiful daughter of a minister. He speaks of the secret letters, the during nighttime visits, the rival prince who was vanquished in a battle of poetry. He speaks of the heartbreaking separation, and the lady who chose a life of dignified solitude over a compromised love. You sit there, listening, a faint, a smile on your face. The story has been polished and romanticized over the years. The messy, painful details have been smoothed away. The agonizing indecision, the superstitious fear, the clumsy mistakes, all of it is gone. What remains is a perfect, tragic jewel of a story, a textbook example of mono no aware. Your chaotic, painful, deeply personal experience has been transformed into a cultural artifact, a piece of entertainment for a new generation. You have become a legend in your own lifetime. This process of transforming personal history into romantic legend was central to the culture of the Heian court. The court was a self-obsessed, self-documenting society. The diaries, the poems, and especially the narrative tales, or monogatirichi, were not just literature. They were a way for the court to understand itself, to process its own experiences and create a shared mythology. The tale of Genji itself is believed by many scholars to be a fictionalized and idealized account of the lives and loves of real historical figures. The line between fact and fiction was blurry, and life was constantly being lived with an eye toward how it would be retold. You notice how the young courtier gets certain details wrong. He claims the farewell poem was written on paper the color of a weeping cherry blossom, a much more dramatic choice than the stark white she actually used. He invents a dramatic, tearful final meeting that never happened, but you don't correct him. You understand that the story no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the court, to the culture. It serves a purpose now, not as a memory, but as an ideal, a model of romantic suffering and aesthetic refinement for others to aspire to. Later, you hear a rumor that a talented new lady-in-waiting, in service to one of the imperial consorts, is writing a long, serialized story. They say it's a tale about a shining prince and his many romantic entanglements. And you hear that one of the central, most poignant episodes in her tale bears a striking resemblance to your own long-lost love affair. Your life has become a chapter in someone else's masterpiece. You think of her, the real woman at the heart of the legend, living her quiet life in the hills. Does she ever hear these stories? Does she smile at their inaccuracies? Or do they cause her a fresh pang of pain? The historical anonymity of so many women from this period is one of its most poignant features. They were the muses, the inspirations, the objects of legendary passion, but their own voices, their own sides of the story, are often lost to us. They exist as characters in the stories of men. You feel a strange sense of detachment, as if you are watching a play about your own life. The passion, the jealousy, the heartbreak, it all feels like it happened to someone else, a younger, more foolish version of yourself. The legend has, in a way, set you free by turning your pain into a beautiful story. The world has allowed you to finally let it go. You are no longer the protagonist of a tragedy. You are just a man, growing old, who once loved someone very much. In that, you realize, is a much more peaceful thing to be. You are an old man now. The fire of youth has banked to a warm, gentle ember. The corridors of the palace, and of your own grand residence, seem longer than they used to. Your steps are slower, more deliberate. One afternoon, you are going through an old storage chest, filled with forgotten relics of your long life. When your hand brushes against a small, black-lacquered box, you know, without opening it, what lies inside. You lift the lid. There, resting on a bed of faded silk, is a single folded piece of paper. It was once a vibrant crimson, but time has softened it to the color of a dying rose petal. It is her first reply to you, the one that made your young heart soar with a hope so fierce it felt like pain. You can still read the characters, her elegant, feminine hand still clear after all these years. You read the poem, and the words are as familiar to you as your own name. But a strange thing has happened. You can remember the poem perfectly, every syllable, every nuance. But when you try to remember her voice, the actual sound of it from those few times you heard it whisper behind a screen, it is a faint, hazy echo. The art has outlasted the reality. The symbol has become more real than the memory it represents. This, you realize, is the nature of immortality in your world. It is not the soul that lives on, but the story. You think of the great poet Sazumi Shikibu, whose passionate, often scandalous affairs were immortalized in her own diary. Historians of the future will debate, and are probably debating already, how much of her diary is a literal, factual account and how much is a carefully constructed literary work, designed to shape her own legend. Was she simply recording her life, or was she creating a timeless work of art out of its messy, beautiful pieces? You now understand that there is very little difference between the two. Your own love affair, once so private and real, has undergone the same transformation, calcifying into a perfect, tragic legend that bears only a passing resemblance to the chaotic truth. And what of the life that was never turned into a story? You think of your long years with your wife, Lady Murasaki, decades of quiet companionship, shared meals, the raising of children, the silent understanding that grew between you. It was a real, substantial, and, in its own way, loving life. But it was a life lived in prose, not poetry. No one will ever tell the story of the nights you sat in comfortable silence, or the time she laughed at a clumsy servant, or the way she looked after your son when he was sick. Those moments, the very fabric of your actual life, will vanish when you die. They were not dramatic enough, not beautiful or tragic enough, to be captured in the amber of a tale. They were simply life. The thought of your own death comes to you now not with fear, but with a kind of gentle, academic curiosity. You will be expected to compose a GSEI, a farewell poem to the world. It is the final, and perhaps most important, act of self-expression for a man of your class. How can you possibly distill a lifetime the soaring passion of your youth, the heartbreaking loss, the long, slow autumn of your marriage, the weight of your political duties into 31 syllables? You look down at the faded crimson letter in the box, the relic of a love so bright it became a legend. Then you look out the window, towards the wing of the house where your wife is likely arranging flowers. A quiet, daily ritual she has performed for 40 years. The legend and the reality, the story that will live forever, and the life that will soon end. And in that moment, you finally understand. Eternity, in your world, was never about an endless expanse of time spent with someone. It was not about a lifetime of quiet companionship. It was about creating a single moment so beautiful, so perfect, so saturated with feeling, that it was worthy of being written down, worthy of being painted onto a scroll, worthy of being whispered in a corridor 100 years from now. You did not get the lifetime, but you had the moment. That in Heian, Japan, the moment, if it is beautiful enough, is all that truly lasts. You close the box, a feeling of profound, quiet peace settling over you at last. The old, lacquered box feels smooth and cool beneath your fingertips. The air in the room is still, and the light from the paper screen has turned to soft, hazy gold with the setting of the sun. The story is over. The memories, once so sharp and vivid, now begin to blur at the edges, softening like ink bleeding into silk. You can feel the weight of the years, not as a burden, but as a warm, heavy blanket settling over you. The faint, distant sounds of the world outside a servant's footstep, the evening call of a bird all seem to be fading, receding into a gentle, humming silence. Let the image of the crimson letter fade. Let the memory of the poems dissolve into the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. The scent of sandalwood and cypress wood gives way to the simple, familiar scent of your own room. The soft background hum of a fan you were told to imagine. So long ago, the world of Heian, with its rustling silks and paper screens, its secret loves and silent sorrows, begins to drift away, like a small, unmanned boat floating out into a vast and peaceful sea. There are no more tests to pass, no more letters to write, no more heartbreaking choices to be made. There is only this quiet, drifting moment, suspended between the story's end and the beginning of a dream. Let the gentle tide of sleep pull you away from the shore. There is nothing left to do now but rest. The end of the article. Good night.